Hey friends, Kim from Stamping Imperfection. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, I would love to have you click subscribe and click that bell to get notifications every time I upload a new video. So I'm participating in the Christmas card parade or the card parade at 3 Room Studios this month, and today is my day to play with my favorite stamp set and post on the blog at 3 Room Studio Stamps. So I am playing with the Let's Hygge stamp set. That's Hygge, and it is a Danish concept which means coziness and contentment, and I love this stamp set. I'm also pulling out one of my favorite 3 Room Studio stencils, and I'm going to play with that today. I've got the Deco Foil Transfer Gel Blanco and some foil, although I am going to change the foil that I select. I pulled out a whole bunch of different foils today, and I decided in the end I'm going to use a really pretty silver foil. I'm also going to use, since I'm using the Transfer Gel Blanco, that means I need to use heat. So off to the side, I've got my laminator warming up while I do this. So I am starting with the stencil, and I love this stencil. It's like starlight, or you could use it for a snowy scene. I think it's pretty fabulous, and it makes a really nice background. So today I want to use it with this, I want a foil background. So it looks like a sparkly, starry night. So I'm using this Deco Foils Transfer Gel Blanco, and you can see I'm using my palette knife to put a thin layer of this on my card base. And this is just a piece of white scrap paper, white cardstock scrap. And I'm just putting a thin layer on top of that. I pull the stencil off and I set that aside for about an hour. It needs to dry, and then I can apply the foil. So in between that, I'm going to make the rest of the elements in my card. I want to create a little scene because I think this stamp set is so perfect for creating a little scene. And in my head, I haven't quite decided what scene I want to set here. I love this giant coffee cup, and I really love the woman relaxing in the chair, having a cup of something warm to drink as she spends an evening relaxing, and it looks like a cozy scene. So I love this. I also absolutely adore the sentiments in this set. In fact, a lot of the sentiments are just so clever on the stamp sets at 3 Room Studio. They're clever, they're funny, they're just fun. So I love the stamp sets I have from 3 Room Studio Stamps. So I decided that I wanted to play with, I had this package of Christmassy pattern paper, and last Christmas last year, somebody, I think it was Susan, one of the design team members, used this stamp set or the other stamp set that has the chair in it. And she created a beautiful pattern on the chair. And I couldn't tell whether she actually created the pattern with her alcohol markers or whether she stamped it. I decided I'm going to stamp it. I don't think I've got a steady enough hand to actually create a striped pattern. Hers was a beautiful plaid. It was gorgeous. And so I wanted to kind of try to mimic that a little bit in my own way. And I stamped that stamp onto pattern paper. And I used my Obsidian ink pad, which is a pigment ink from Altenew. And again, I put that aside to dry because I don't want that pigment ink smearing at all when I go to cut it out and everything. So while I'm waiting for that stuff to dry, I'm going to go ahead and color my image. Now I'm not going to bother coloring the chair because I'm actually going to cut the chair. I'm going to fussy cut the chair and the stool out of that pattern paper and glue them onto this one. And then I'm just coloring the rest of this scene with my Copic markers. So I just pulled out some reds and greens, and I'll add a little bit of, I don't know, brown or black or something to create her hair. And I just love to color. I'm by no means an expert, so I'm just using 2 or 3 different colors to add some some like shadows or dark places in each of the things that I'm coloring. So I'm adding her skin tones and all of that. And I'll go ahead and finish that. So once I got that finished, I went ahead and I fussy cut out the chair. Now I don't need the chair legs. I want to make sure I don't have the girl in this at all. So I'm cutting all that off. I'm just cutting out the part of the chair she's sitting in and the part of the stool where her legs are resting. So I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut that out, and and you can see I'm not leaving any, I'm cutting right along the outside edge of the black ink outline of that chair. And I'm not leaving any border around the end. And I'm also going to do the same thing to the image on the white cardstock here, except this time I need all of it. So I want the chair, I want the chair legs, I want all the bits of the woman relaxing in this chair. And again, I'm not leaving any border around this. I could actually leave a border around this part if I wanted to, and that would look fine. In general, when I fussy cut, I like to leave a little bit of the white border around the edge. I just think it looks better. But in this case, I really want that chair to appear seamless. So I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut the rest of that out. And I also decided I want to add a little bit more dimension to this chair. So I pulled out W0 and W1, and I'm just adding a little bit of shadow along the curved edges of like the armrest and the back of the chair and the top of the stool. And later I'll actually go and do that with a W4 because I thought that helped, but I really want it to be darker. So now I'm just adding some glue. Once I got everything cut out, I'm just added some glue to the back of all those pattern paper pieces. And I really like the way this turned out. It was a great way to use up this piece of pattern paper. I might not have used any other way, actually. And I really like it. I think it's super fun. I love the colors in it. I think it looks like a cozy chair. So I'm really happy with the way this turned out. And I felt very inspired by Susan's card. So you can check out, if you check out the 3 Room Studio Instagram, that's probably on there, on that Instagram. So you can see that. So I did go ahead and I pulled out my sentiment strip dies. I have a whole bunch of them that I've collected from all different stamp sets. And I cut out 3 of the sentiments: Warm Winter Hugs, It's Cold Outside, and Bring on the Cozy. Then I took a piece of scrap watercolor paper, and I have these little frame dies, and I'm using one of the smaller ones. I want to create a window frame around a window because I want her to be sitting next to a window where the starlight is showing through. So that's my plan for my scene. And you can see in this pattern paper package, which is left over from last year or the year before, I don't even know where this came from. But you can see there was also a coordinating piece that looks like floorboards. So I'm going to use a little bit of that. I did cut let's see, what was that? That was 3/8 inch strip of that watercolor paper because I'm going to add a little trim around the base of the floorboard that I'm creating. So I'm just cutting this down a little bit to fit on the bottom of my card front. I did add a piece of gray, very light gray, to a card base, and this is an A2 size card. It's 4.25 by 5.5. The card base itself is 8.5 by 5.5. I scored and folded it at 4.25. So I've got a little bit of that flooring looking piece in there, and now I'm fussy cutting, or I'm die cutting out what's going to be my window frame. And I used the leftover watercolor paper just because I like that it's got a little bit of texture and it's off-white. So I'm getting a slightly different color here. I didn't want the trim pieces to blend in with the white on the floor, or I really wanted them to stand out a little bit from that soft gray wall color that I'm using with that piece of scrap paper. So I'm using a lot of scrap pieces up or leftover pieces from other projects. So I'm adding that little piece of floor trim in, and I'm just like playing with my scene here, and I like it. I can't wait to do the foiling and do some ink blending and get the little starry night sky created there. I think that's really fun. I think scene cards, I thought it was crazy to build all these scenes when I first started doing them, but I actually think I enjoy creating the scenes. It's like one of my favorite kinds of cards to make, the little scenes. You can get such cute critter stamps, and at 3 Room Studio, you can get all of the great girlfriend stamps. That's what I think of them as. And there are several scene stamps. There are a few digital scene stamps, so you can create it with digital stamps as well. And I love coloring with digital stamps. So I just went ahead and pulled out, that's just copy paper I folded in half. I'm using that as my carrier sheet. The foil is pretty side up on top of that background where the transfer gel Blanco is finally dry. I ran it through once and I was just going to peek to see how it came out. It was perfect, absolutely perfect. And I'm only going to use a small part of this, so I'll have another part of this to use for another project. So I did trim that piece down to fit behind my little window frame. I pulled out some chipped sapphire distress oxide, and I'm just putting that around the edges here. And I'm going right over top of that foil because that foil will resist the ink. So I will buff that foil with a microfiber cloth after I get all of the ink blending done. And once I go around the outside, I'm going to pull out this tumbled glass and do the inside. And I'll use that tumbled glass to actually really, really do a nice blending job between those two inks. I really like the night scenes with a little bit of darker color all around the outside edge. I know that's not what it looks like when I look out the window, but I just really like the way it looks when I'm making my card. So I'm just play with my blending back and forth between the two until I get a really nice blend. I went ahead and glued that to the back of my frame, and now I'm going to glue this to my card. And I'm using this multimedia mat. I either use this glue or the Tombow glue. Like, I really like the Tombow glues, and I really like this multimedia mat. And I glue that down to my card. Now I'm going to add some foam to this chair. I'll pop it up and give this a little bit of dimension. And I've got my sentiments all cut out and ready to go. They'll also get a little bit of foam on the back. So I'm just adding that here. I like to have a little bit of dimension on my card. I think it just makes for a fun card. And I did take some of that tumbled glass, the lighter blue, and just inked around the edges of each one of those sentiments. I'm using the 1/8 inch foam strips I have in my stash to add dimension to the sentiments. I thought these 3 sentiments worked really well together, and I wanted to add all 3 of them. So it made it a little easier once I added the foam to ink blend the outside edge of this. And I will put links below to the 3 Room Studio blog and also to the 2 products that I'm using from the 3 Room Studio store. Definitely check it out. It's such a fun store. There's so many fun stamp sets, and there are lots of digital sets, and the stencils are divine. They're my favorite stencils to use and play with. So I've got all of the stencils in the store. I just love them. So I'm going to add these together and pop these up, and that's going to complete my card. And a super simple little scene with some patterned paper and some Copic coloring and a sweet little stamp set. So I'll just add these on. I don't try to get them straight. The more crooked they are, the better I like them. And that is it. Thank you so much for watching, friends. Please give this video a thumbs up. And if you aren't subscribed, I would love to have you subscribe to my channel. And I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. Thanks for watching.